Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Vanda, founder of the Period Makeover Solution, and today we are celebrating the 100th episode of the podcast. Told you guys last week that this was coming and that we would be doing something fun to celebrate. So I wanted to do a giveaway and I wanted to do a promotion of this podcast episode. So we are going to do that together. The contest is going to run all of this week. So as long as sometime this week you take a screenshot of this podcast episode, you share it out on your social media platform. I know most of you guys probably are going to be coming from Instagram. Screenshot, share it there, tag me. And then I'm going to be collecting all of those names throughout the week between now and Friday night. On Monday morning, I will announce who our winner is going to be. And I will be sending the person that is the winner a mineral package. I'm going to send them a travel packet, sample package is what I was trying to say. Sample package of the travel packs of one of my favorite mineral drink brands. So I'm very excited about this. It's a huge milestone for the podcast to hit because most podcasts nowadays don't even get to 100 episodes. And I really do love having the podcast. I feel like it's a great way for me to sit down and kind of get to chat a little bit with you guys about all these really important topics about minerals and hormones and how, all of it intertwines and how we address it and how, we can address it, that we don't just have to take it as a normal part of our journey as a woman and part of our motherhood and just kind of deal with it. Because I feel like that is what a lot of providers and modern day things leads us to believe, and it's just not the truth. So I also thought for this 100th episode, it would be very appropriate and timely for us to talk about HTMA testing. It's been quite a while since I did a podcast episode that was just dedicated to kind of explaining what HTMA is, why it's useful, how you do it, et cetera, et cetera. Because a lot of people have never heard of HTMA testing before they come into my world, and it takes a little bit for people to really understand it. And honestly, as far as interpreting the test, that is something that really only a practitioner that has been heavily trained in HTMAs can do for you. So that's what we're going to get into today. So to start out, you will hear me call this test almost exclusively HTMA because that's a lot easier and shorter to say than hair tissue mineral analysis. But that is what it stands for. That is what we are. We are taking a hair sample and we are analyzing it for its mineral content. And there's big differences. I got into this a little bit in last Tuesday's episode 98, about like why HTMA testing is one of my favorite functional tests. Because there's some big differences between what we see on a hair tissue mineral analysis test and what we see in blood work. There, we are looking at two totally different things, and the way we use the information is also very different. So if you kind of want to hear a deep dive on that, you can flip back to episode 98, why functional medicine testing matters. And I cover a little more than just HTMA testing, but that would be a deep dive there. In terms of how you do an HTMA test, number one, you've got to connect with a provider like myself that will order it for you and knows how to interpret it. Interpretation of an HTMA test is not as black and white as looking at the values and saying this is high or low. You also have to have the backstory and really understand how it is that those minerals are used by the body. In order for you to know what it means for the level to be high or low. And that's not something that I have to, in full big depth explain to you guys as listeners, because when you work with me as your practitioner, I'm going to worry about that for you. I'm going to explain that to you in terms of what your results say and what they mean. And you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty details. Once you get a practitioner that can order the testing for you and knows what to do with the results, you're going to receive a kit in the mail, likely, that is going to come with a scale It's like a little piece of cardstock. You fold in the ends, and that is what you, as you're cutting your hair sample, you place the hair on there, and when it tips over, that's how you know that you've collected enough hair. Because since this is a hair sample and everyone's hair and the density of their hair is a little bit differently, and also nobody would want to count the strands of their hair that they're cutting, the amount that it takes for me versus I don't have thick hair, but I just have like average, I feel like hair. Um, so the amount that I have to cut versus somebody that has really thin hair versus somebody that has really thick hair, we would all, it would be different. Now, in general, overall, it's a very small amount of hair that you have to cut. I know that really freaks people out, especially because you can't test the ends of your hair. You have to cut a sample from your scalp and you have to send the hair that is closest to the scalp into the lab. That's because that is the most current data. Your hair is dead cells. That's what your hair is made of. We want to be looking at the cells that are most current, not cells from like years ago at the end of your hair. You know what I'm saying? Because if we did that, if we tested your ends of your hair, then the data that we would be looking at wouldn't be relevant to where you are in your life and what you have going on right now. And if I gave you a protocol, a care plan based on that data, it probably wouldn't help you to feel any better because what we would be looking at would not be current. So, again, I know it freaks some people out to have to cut that amount of hair, but again, it's a small amount. As a general kind of rule of thumb to give some context to the amount, we're looking at about a tablespoon of hair. It's not a lot. You can cut it from, a couple different places on the scalp if you don't get it all in your first cut. And that way, again, it's such a small amount. It's easy to cover it up. It's not like you're taking out a chunk of your hair. And I do know that that is easier for some people than others. I have longer, medium to long length hair. I know some people have very short hair, and we can definitely, talk through that. I can give some tips on how to better collect your sample if that's your situation. Now, I want to talk about a little bit about the data that we get with a hair tissue mineral analysis because we get a lot of data. And I'm not going to get too nitty-gritty in the weeds with it because, again, that's something as your practitioner that I look at all those things. I know what all those things mean. I know what to look for. It's not something you have to worry with, but I like to share it because I want you to understand the value of what you're getting when you decide to purchase a hair tissue mineral analysis package. Because this is not like you're going to the lab to get one thing drawn and you're just getting one level. We're getting almost 40 different readings and data points to look at and to then be able to take action on. And of course, we always combine that data with your health history, what you have going on. And that's why I always include a detailed intake form as part of my onboarding process with clients, so that I have to know a little bit about you before I can accurately interpret your test results. That helps me fit all of the pieces together. I often kind of explain because I do both hormone testing and mineral testing in my practice, and they both are very valuable. They are both very informative, and they both definitely have their place. And a lot of times I like to do them together on my clients because we do need both pieces of information. But today, since we're just focused on HTMA, I want to share this kind of explanation that I give to a lot of my clients or potential clients as we're talking through this. A lot of people think that what they need is hormone testing because that's what their symptoms are. Their symptoms are hormone related symptoms, things like PMS, painful periods, inability to get pregnant. And they come to me and they're like, I need to get my hormones evaluated. And they're I'm not saying that there are not times when, yes, we don't need to just do kind of a straightforward hormone analysis, but it's often so much more complex than that because we don't just need to know what the hormone levels are. We also need to know what is going on in the body and in the person's environment and in their life that is causing the hormone levels to be what they are. Oftentimes, women are coming with imbalanced or insufficient hormones. And we really, in order to improve that and impact that in a positive way, we've got to take it a step back little further and figure out how we got here in the first place. What is going on that is leading to these symptoms? And that is really the difference between hormone testing, like what I do with a Dutch test, and a hair tissue mineral analysis test. That Dutch test is going to tell us what the hormone levels are. And again, that's very valuable, very needed in some circumstances. But if all we're looking at then is the Dutch test, we're often left wondering, well, what is causing that estrogen dominance? What's causing this low progesterone level? What's causing this high cortisol level? The HTMA test is what helps us to see the mineral levels and the heavy metals that may be accumulated in the body, which is what tells us the why behind the symptoms that you're experiencing. We have to have minerals in order for our cells to communicate effectively. We have to have sufficient minerals in order for our hormones to be able to get inside the cell and work properly and do hormone signaling and that communication piece between our hormones and the brain and like our ovaries and the brain. We have to have sufficient minerals in order for those processes to work, in order for our body to know when to create more of a hormone or when we have enough of that mineral, when we need to excrete more of it. It's um it's that hormone signaling, that communication between, within the body that is really impacted by our hormones, by our mineral levels. And then, there are also so many symptoms that can be driven both by, yes, hormone imbalances, but can also really be driven by our mineral levels and whether that mineral is high or low. So if we just take, as an example, if we just talk about fatigue. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go fatigue or PMS. Maybe we'll talk about both. Let's talk about fatigue first. So and I don't even mean like fatigue on an extreme level, like you literally can't get out of the bed. I'm talking about just everyday I'm tired all the time. Like I feel run down. I don't feel like I have the energy that I should have as a 30-something-year-old woman living her life. That can be because of a hormone signaling issue. Maybe you don't have enough testosterone, maybe you don't have enough estrogen, or it can also be because of imbalances with your magnesium, sodium, and potassium, because all three of those things can impact and do impact the energy production in your body. Um, if we go the PMS route, we could, yes, obviously, if we have estrogen dominance, then PMS and while you're bleeding, period symptoms are going to be impacted. But we can also have minerals like imbalances between calcium and magnesium that make period cramps a lot worse. We can have copper imbalances that make the mood type symptoms around PMS a lot worse if we have too much copper. Coming back to the fatigue, if you feel like really low energy when you're in specifically like your luteal phase, sometimes that can come back to not having enough copper, which I don't think gets talked about enough. So it's bringing all of these pieces together and looking at the data and knowing how it applies to the patient that's in front of me, that I'm talking with, that I'm working with, and making, you know, a plan for them that's really customized to the symptoms they're experiencing, plus what the data is telling us. That's what makes HTMA testing so powerful because, again, and I feel like I've said it several times, but without the data, we're left to just kind of guess. And yes, I don't want to discount the impact and just the amount of things that you can learn by talking with someone and doing an intake assessment and assessment of their symptoms. We can learn a lot with that. We truly, really can. And that's, again, that's why I incorporate it with every client. But there is still an element of, I don't really know why I feel this way, or I don't really know why I do this certain thing, or I don't really know why it is that I can't sleep through the night, that I wake up in the middle of the night more nights than not, and I'm having these racing thoughts, or I lay down at night and I can't fall asleep and I toss and turn all night long, or, I don't really know what it is that is causing me to bleed so heavy every month because the women that are in this community, the women that come to work with me, most of you guys have already tackled kind of the well-known things. You're like, I'm trying to eat pretty decent. And again, you don't have to be perfect, but like you're trying to make healthier choices. You're trying to not eat out as much. You're trying to eat whole foods. You're trying to work out when you can. Like you're trying to drink the water, move your body, be in the sunlight. You're already kind of trying to tackle the basics. But you're still left with this basket full of symptoms that you can't figure out why you're having them and what's going on and what exactly it is that you need to do differently in order to address that symptom. And having the actual data cuts out so much of that. Well, I'm going to try this. Well, I'm going to try that. My friend took this and it really helped her. My friend started, you know, doing XYZ and it really helped her. So I'm going to try that too. When we get to see the actual mineral blueprint of your body, we know exactly what your body needs because it's right there in black and white. I'm trying to think of what other questions I commonly get about the HTMA testing. Biggest question that I usually get is, can my doctor order this for me so that I can use my insurance to pay for it? 9 times out of 10, the answer there is going to be no, because your doctor probably isn't even going to know what HTMA testing is. It's not something they're trained on. They don't know a lot about it. They may not be interested in hearing anything about it. Um, so unless you have a functional medicine trained provider, probably going to be a no there. The other question I commonly get is, how often do I do this test? And I think this is where I'm a little unique as a practitioner. Um, with a hair tissue mineral analysis, since you're looking at the last 3 to 4 months of data, some practitioners would have you repeat every 3 to 4 months. And I have found with my clients that's not super impactful and useful. You can do it that frequently, but I just don't find that it's needed or necessary. I have my clients typically repeat at 6 months and then a year. And then you can just kind of do it yearly after that to check in, see how things are going, see if there's something with your care plan that needs to be tweaked or changed. Um, and then I always tell my clients too, especially since with the, what am I trying to say? With the stage of life that many of my clients are in and either coming into or still in of having babies, um, if there's some type of big shift in either your life or in your symptoms, that's a good time to do a test again and check in. So, like, I'll have clients that come to me either because they're postpartum, maybe they're a month or two out from having their baby and they're ready to dig their heels in and kind of address some of their symptoms that they've developed postpartum. I'll have some come back to me and be like, I'm getting ready to conceive again, and I want to make sure that like things are in order before we do that. They'll come to me, 3 or 4 months prior to that. Um, and then I have just my standard clients that are kind of like myself. They're in this season of just like now I'm raising my babies, and I really am focused on my own health and my own wellness and just how I can be my healthiest self and how I can also like show up and feel my best in this day-to-day life. So that I feel good and so that I am feeling good, which then enables me to be the mom and the wife that I want to be. I can play with my kids. I have the energy to, at the end of the day, when we put the kids to bed, still interact with my husband and spend time with him and all the things. Like those type of women typically do their first test. We repeat in 6 months, and then I say, you can do this yearly. Like we're good. Um, if you guys have any other questions about HTMA testing, you can always reach out to me in email or on Instagram, in a DM, wherever you connect with me, to ask those questions. I love to talk about HTMA testing. I promise, answer your question or send you a resource that answers your question for you. Um, I think that pretty well wraps up the commonly asked questions that I get. Um, I know that HTMA testing can seem a little foreign or like it's a lot to grasp for some people because like I said, a lot of you may have never heard of HTMA testing before. I do have past episodes of the podcast where I have, kind of talked through HTMA testing. I have some blog posts. I've shared case studies before. I even have some recorded video case studies where I've like shared my own HTMA results or a client's with their permission and kind of walked through because I think sometimes it helps to see an example um, and see all the different pieces come together. So if that's something, if you're listening and you're like curious about that, you can always reach out to me and I could share some of that with you. And then, of course, if you're like, yeah, I think this is exactly what I need because I need help getting the answers as to why I feel the way that I do, then there's always a link in the show notes for like a clarity call with me that you can book for free where we could hop on a call and chat about what your symptoms are, what you've got going on, and then we could talk about whether or not HTMA testing is a good fit for you. Now, before I wrap up, I want to give the reminder um, about the giveaway for this 100th episode. So if you haven't done it yet, take a second right now, screenshot the episode, go over to your Instagram stories, share it, and tag me. My Instagram account, in case you don't follow me there, is Wellness with Vanda. Um, I'll be collecting those names through Friday night. I will announce a winner Monday morning to my email list and on my Instagram. And like I said, that winner is going to be getting a travel pack variety pack. I know I'm not saying that the most eloquent way. I can't think of how better to say it, but it's a variety pack of the travel size sticks of my favorite mineral drink because I firmly believe that everyone can benefit from a daily mineral drink. Um, so hopefully, if you're not someone that does that already, if you are the winner, hopefully that gets you started on your journey. It's incredible how quickly we can see positive results, positive changes in symptoms when we start adding in those minerals. So I'm going to leave you guys there for this week. I will be back next week to chat with you. I hope you have a great week.